All right. Mr. G is now live, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hopefully, everyone's having a good start to their week. It is Monday. At least last I checked, according to the calendar I got on my wall in front of me. At least it tells me it's a Monday. But I kind of feel like it's all merged together. Every day is kind of the same day. I've been kind of calling it same day. I don't know about the rest of you guys. Well, as I said on Dojo, this week I'm going to try to make my goal, schedule permitting, to do my read-alouds at 11 o'clock. I know a couple families have asked, can I do it at a set time? And that's always been my goal, but with my schedule, it's susceptible to change, and I have to do it when I can do it. So I will make my goal to do it at 11 o'clock in the morning this week. That will be my goal for this week. But I will remind families that, if you can't catch my videos live, I do have them posted on my channel. And you could always click the link afterwards and be able to do the rewatch then. That's why I have them posted on the channel, so you can do it that way. But going forward here, we will get started. Well, now I don't have anybody. Oh, there we go. Got somebody in. All right. So I will go over poached what I read. Oh, geez. Was it Friday that I read? Yeah, it was Friday. I said, guys, every day is kind of merging into one, but I think I remember what I read on Friday. We know that Ben left Tracy's office, and Bubba Stackhouse slapped a transmitter bracelet on his ankle, kind of those electronic ones. You may have seen it on some of like the police shows where, the suspected, defendant, that they suspect, the main suspect of a crime, or when someone is being released from jail but is under house arrest. They have an ankle bracelet on that looks like it's big, it's black, it's got like a radio transmitter on it, but it tracks where you go. And it also is programmed where it only allows you to be in certain places at certain times. So Bubba basically said that Teddy is allowed to be home and he's allowed to go to school. Now, home is still at Fun Jungle, as we know. But if he deviates from any of those places, the radio transmitter will let him know. They'll think that he's trying to run away, escape, and they'll arrest him and throw him in juvie hall. So he's got that to contend with. He still has on his mind the threat that Tracy laid down. If he has one more thing happen at the park that involves him. She cited back in book 1, Henry the Hippo's funeral. We all know how that happened, the big incident that happened there. She cited at the beginning of book 1 where he gave water balloons to the chimpanzees, and the chimpanzees then threw them at the visitors at Fun Jungle. She cited, the whole thing with Kazoo being missing and the chase through the park because Marge was chasing him for throwing mannequin parts in Shark Odyssey. Oh, hey, Zach, good to see you. And citing the most recently when Marge and Bubba Stackhouse tried to arrest him at Koalaville, that she laid out the threat, if one more thing happens, you don't stay on the investigation and it leads to another big fiasco incident, your parents are fired and you're not allowed at Fun Jungle anymore. And that's on top of, then we'll throw you in juvie hall because we think you stole Kazoo. So we dealt with all that. Teddy's dad's still looking through the security footage because they're trying to find if anyone else went into Koalaville and left. Because so far it only shows Teddy accessing and leaving the place. He got a call from Summer McCracken. He begged Summer to try to get her dad to convince Tracy not to follow through on her threat. And it was Summer that told her that that threat came from her father, J.J. McCracken himself. He likes Teddy's parents. He values them as employees at his park, but Teddy is just causing, whether he means to cause it or not, he has caused so many incidents that JJ is losing money on the park. And it's been bad for his business. When you're losing money like that, when you're in a business, you're there to make money, not lose money. So JJ is thinking with his pocketbook right now. But Summer has made it clear to Teddy, despite Tracy's threat, despite his parents telling him that he needs to stay out of this, Summer says it will be in your best interest to investigate because despite Marge being told that she needs to look at other suspects and follow other leads, she's not. She is so dead set that Teddy is the one, that she is building her case against him. And while she's doing that, the real thief is not going to be found. And we know that there's a time clock because Kazoo only eats a certain type of eucalyptus leaves. And the thief didn't take any of them. So Kazoo maybe has 2 days until he dies of starvation. So there's a clock on this. The last chapter that I read, Teddy went to school. However, he had a run-in again with Vance Jessup and his 2 lackeys, Tim Jim. They wanted to pull another prank at Fun Jungle because it was so great. And they think Teddy is, a real tough guy now because, he's got an ankle bracelet on. Police think that he stole Kazoo, so they think, oh man, we got you to pull one prank, and now you're some sort of, bad boy now. Teddy says no, he's not going to do another prank. He's already got enough heat on him as it is with the Kazoo thing, and he says, we'll get busted. Marge has stepped up security. You guys are lucky she didn't get you guys a few days ago. Vance didn't like being told no. Him and his lackeys, Tim Jim, then took Teddy to the toilet of doom, to the one bathroom that none of the kids want to go to. Apparently, it's a bathroom with a toilet that had, I think, cherry bombs put into it, and the pipes burst. So it obviously doesn't flush very well, and it sounds like the custodians don't clean this bathroom very often. And so the toilet of dooms has some, crap in it that, you wouldn't want to go near with it with a 10-foot pole. And they're going to give Teddy a swirly in this thing. It doesn't happen to Teddy. He is saved by 2 stars of the football team, 2 8th graders on him. But both Tim and Jim move toward Vance. But then Teddy fights back. Teddy resists, ends up headbutting Vance, busts Vance's lips open, and then slips. So he's crying, runs out of the bathroom, and Dash and Ethan invite Teddy to sit with them at their table for lunch. And that's where we ended the chapter last week. That's where I stopped. So Xavier and I ate lunch with the kids. Dash and Ethan invited us to sit with the Royals in the center. Regarded the Royals so highly, I figured they'd all be fascinating. Instead, a bit more attractive and better at sports. They hadn't ignored me, and moreover, the Royals were all welcoming and friendly. No one seemed upset that we were suddenly at their table, although they weren't really paying that much attention to us. Instead, they were riveted to Dash and Ethan, who were recounting their story of Vance and Tim Jim's defeat in sickening detail. If the Royals weren't focused on us, however, everyone else in the cafeteria seemed to be. As I ate my lunch, I could feel the eyes of the entire school on me, hundreds of fellow students watching my every move with curiosity and jealousy, already spreading rumors about what I had done to gain access to the exalted center table. Meanwhile, Xavier was beside him as he dug into his food. We're eating with, except one. Violet Grace, the head cheerleader, was looking at me. But the moment I caught her at it, she turned away and pretended as though she hadn't been. The same, something was going on at school, something everyone else knew about that somehow I didn't. Ethan and Dash wrapped up their story, and the Royals cheered with approval. Violet looked back toward us. This time, however, she didn't turn away again. Instead, she asked for a moment. If our school had royalty, Violet was the other cheerleaders were merely cute. Now Violet seemed thrown. On YouTube, she clarified. Well, cheerleaders had said, he doesn't even know. The cheerleaders, oh, she cried. Don't be upset. It's cool. I just figured you knew. Everybody has seen it. So that was why everyone had been stealing glances at me all day long. I haven't seen it, I said. Hold on. Violet dug her phone out of her purse and brought up YouTube on it. She slid it next to me so we could both watch. And several of the royals crowded around us to see it again. It was now so close. I was now so close to Violet I could smell her. She smelled surprisingly good, like the rain forest in bloom. And I suddenly worried that what I smelled like, hopefully not the zoo, or worse, the toilet of doom. I caught Xavier staring at Violet nestled against my side. He didn't seem excited to be with the Royals anymore. He instead looked jealous of me. I quickly turned my attention to the video on Violet's phone. It was one of the many that had been posted showing Marge and Bubba smashing into the koala exhibit the day before. However, this one was from a better angle than the others I had seen in Tracy's office, and unlike many of those, it was shot from close by, in focus. It started on the stuffed koala. Whoever was filming was right at the glass trying to get a decent shot of it, thinking it was really Kazoo. He's just sleeping, someone off camera said disappointedly. Come on, let's go see something interesting. Then there was a sudden commotion by the exit door. The camera swung that way in time to see Dad and me push through and then get cornered by Bubba and Marge against the glass. Noticed him in the heat of the moment. That's you, right? Everyone stand back, Marge ordered on the video. This kid is dangerous. Are you? Violet asked. I looked up at the video to find she and everyone else was now watching me. Am I what? Dangerous, Violet said. Vance Jessup certainly thinks so, Dash said, and everyone laughed. No, I told him, I'm not dangerous. Then why did the security lady say that you were? Violet asked. Her green eyes were fixed tightly on me. She thinks I stole Kazoo, I said. A lot of the royals went ooh in response. Hey, Ethan called. This is the best part. Everyone returned their attention to the video in time to see Marge and Bubba crash through the glass. Only whoever had filmed it slowed it down. Instead of it happening in a few seconds, the chaos now played out at leisurely. Even on a tiny phone, I could see the panic on Marge's face as she tumbled into the exhibit, then Bubba's surprise as he sailed in after her, followed by the looks of horror on the spectators as they watched the koala get crushed flat. The royals were laughing hysterically, even though they had seen it many times over. That must have been wild being there, Dash said, and everyone echoed an agreement. The video resumed normal speed, zooming in on the pancaked body of what everyone thought was Kazoo. Oh my, the person recording it said. That doesn't look good. I didn't steal him, I said. Everyone looked up from the video again, back at me. In case you were wondering, I explained, Marge, the guard who just squashed Kazoo, is wrong about me. Violet stared into my eyes for a moment, then nodded. Cool, she said. I believe you. The royals around us all nodded in agreement. I wasn't sure if I sounded convincing or if they were all merely following Violet's lead, but it was reassuring to see. Is that why you've got the ankle bracelet? Ethan asked. Most of the royals, including Violet, looked at him curiously, not knowing what he meant. Ethan kept his gaze locked on me, though. I saw it in the bathroom, he told me. Go ahead and show everyone. It's pretty sweet. I pushed my chair back from the table and hiked my jeans up, revealing the monitor clenched around my leg. I had expected that my fellow students would be put off by our rest. What's that, fam? Can I touch it? Violet asked. Sure, I guess. I propped my leg up on a chair. Violet tentatively touched the monitor, like it might explode. Excellent, she said. The other royals crowded around to examine the bracelet as well. I had to lean back to give them all room. As I did, I caught a glimpse of the video still playing on Violet's phone. The camera was now panning back and forth between Pete Thwacker and the people trying to extricate the stuffed koala from beneath Bubba and Marge. As it did, it repeatedly caught a man in the background. He was dressed like all the other tourists, but something seemed strange about him. Can you pause that? I asked Violet. She did. Do you want to watch? You do not want to watch it anymore? Actually, I want to take a closer look. Can I borrow your phone? Sure. Violet handed the phone to me, intrigued. I rewound it to the man. He was thick set and muscular like a wrestler, wearing jeans and a winter coat and an orange Houston Astros baseball cap. While everyone else around him seemed to be either disgusted or saddened, he was watching the whole thing stoically and his mouth flat, emotionless line. That was understandable, however. Not everyone reacted to tragedy the same way. There was something else about him that had caught my attention. Do you know that guy? Xavier asked. No, I said. I've never seen him before. Then why are you so interested in him? Dash asked. He's wearing sunglasses, I said. So, Xavier asked, lots of people wear sunglasses. He's inside, I said. Plus, it's pretty dark. Not the kind of day anyone would be wearing sunglasses outside. Now everyone's attention had shifted from my bracelet back to me again. Suspicious, Ethan said. You think he stole Kazoo? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. In truth, I knew the sunglasses weren't that suspicious. Wearing them inside on a cloudy day wasn't much evidence against someone, but something still struck me about the man in the Astros cap. I suddenly had the feeling that maybe I had seen him before. Only I couldn't recall where. It was hard to get a good idea of what he looked like on the tiny screen. I handed the phone back to Violet. Thanks, I said. No problem, she said. Can I ask you something? Sure. Word is, you live at Fun Jungle, right? I swallowed, surprised Violet knew that about me. Or anything about me, for that matter. Yes, both of my parents work there. That's pretty cool, Dash put in, and a lot of the Royals echoed in agreement. So you get to hang out there after the park closes? Sometimes, I said. This was met with murmurs of excitement from the group. I couldn't help but smile. I had always figured that living at the zoo would be considered weird by the Royals, and said they were all intrigued. Do you ever get to play with any of the animals? Ethan asked. Well, that's not really good for the animals, I said, but I've been in with the gorillas a few times. This produced even more excitement. Ooh, I love gorillas, one of the cheerleaders squealed. Could you ever get me in there? Maybe, I said. In truth, the answer was no, but I wasn't about to shoot down a cheerleader right then and there. That's not what I wanted to ask about, Violet began. Before she could finish her thought, however, a football player called out, How about the Tigers? Have you ever been in with the Tigers? No, I said, but I was right there when the tiger escaped at that big party last year. That really got everyone's attention. Now I was being peppered with too many questions to answer. Some kids wanted to know about the tiger escape. Others wanted to know about what other animals I've been able to interact with. Most want to know if I can get them free tickets. Violet kept trying to get a word in edgewise, but the others drowned her out. Finally, she said, "Hey, let me speak." Everyone else fell silent deferentially. They seemed almost embarrassed that the queen had been forced to raise her voice. Violet returned her attention to me. "There's a rumor going around about you," she began. "I just want to know if it's true." "Shoot," I said, wondering what it could be. The fact that I'd grown up in the Congo, or that I helped solve a mystery at Henry's death, or that I'd been responsible for the debacle at Henry's funeral. "Are you friends with Summer McCracken?" Violet asked. I hadn't expected that, although I realized I should have. Sometimes I forgot Summer was just as famous as Fun Jungle. As the daughter of one of the richest men in America, she routinely ended up on the internet or on covers of tabloid magazines. "He is," Xavier said proudly. "In fact, he talked to her last night." This provoked the most excitement so far. The Royals immediately forgot about everything else. "What's she like?" Violet asked, and everyone else seconded that question. I took my time answering. I didn't mind milking my life at Fun Jungle to get in with the Royals, but it seemed wrong to use my friendship with Summer the same way. I had always thought the major reason Summer had liked me at all was because I never had taken advantage of our relationship. Now I was afraid that the moment I said anything revealing about her, it would spread like wildfire through the school. So I went with the blandest thing I could think of. "She's nice." "I knew it," Violet said triumphantly. "She always seems nice on TV." The others jumped. "Have you ever been to her house? How often do you talk to her? Does she dye her hair?" Violet, however, was front and center, commanding the most attention. She put her hand on my knee and got face to face with me. "Next time she's in town, could you introduce us?" "I don't think she's going to be in town for a while," I said, trying to duck the question. Before Violet could follow up, the bell rang, signaling the end of class. Although the Royals took their time, less concerned about getting tardies. However, the bell gave us an excuse to break away from them. So I just say thanks again for saving me. Get Summer McCracken to go with a grin. "It's no big deal." I smiled back and turned for the door. Xavier was right on my heels. In my whole life, I never thought I'd get to sit with the Royals. "They're just kids," I told him. "They're no different from us." "They're way different from us," Xavier corrected. "They're popular, and now you're popular too." "Did you see their faces when they heard that you knew Summer?" The cheerleaders flipped. "You ought to ask Summer to the school dance. If she came with you, you'd be the coolest kid in the history of this school." Like that. But before I could, someone tapped my shoulder. I spun around to find her. "This is my cell phone number." Violet flashed a quick, surprisingly shy smile, then ducked away before anyone else had noticed that she'd been talking to me. Xavier's jaw dropped, and he just wants to meet Summer. Fully believed that either. I'm a seventh grader who nearly got work. He had cleaned himself off. Change was downright terrifying. I wondered how long he. Once I was boarding the bus, skillfully at me through the window. Again, he was once again gone, leaving me to wonder. On the ride home, however, I received two texts that made me forget all about the bully. The first was from at Fun Jungle to make her case against you. Don't think LM had. The next was from my father. "Bad news. I've gone through all the security footage for the night of Kazoo's disappearance. I didn't find anything on it. No one went in or out of the koala exhibit except you. I have a photograph. I have a photograph of. I have to photograph a surgery for Doc this afternoon, but should be done by. Is at her office. Check in with us when you get home from school." I pocketed my phone, feeling frustrated. How could anyone have possibly swiped Kazoo without showing up on the security tapes? It didn't seem possible. Meanwhile, Large Marge was briefing JJ the next morning, and all the evidence still pointed directly at me. If I didn't figure out who Kazoo's kidnapper was before then, JJ might not have any choice but to order my arrest. It was time to put Summer's plan into action. Once the bus dropped me off at Fun Jungle, I returned home just long enough to ditch my backpack, then headed right into the park. Darlene, the guard, paid far more attention to me than usual. She actually stopped watching her. Marlene wrote that down. As I passed through the metal detector, my ankle bracelet set off the alarm. It's only my monitor, I said, hiking up and let her wave a security wand over me. It crackled like crazy around my ankle, but nowhere else. You're clean. Stay out of trouble now. I called Mom as I passed into the park. Are you home? She asked. I just got back. How was school today? Anything interesting happen? Not really, I lied. I planned to tell her and Dad the whole story about Vance, but it made more sense to wait till dinner. The moment Mom heard, she'd want every detail, and I didn't have time for all that. How about you? Mom sighed. I'm still having trouble with Motopi. Furious George? Did he go nuts again? No, he didn't do anything wrong, Mom said. That's the problem. I can't figure out what's triggering these episodes. If anything, he behaved beautifully all day. Gentle as a teddy bear. It's killing me to keep him in solitary. Chimps are such social creatures. It's obvious he's unhappy away from the others. Can you move him back then? I asked. Unfortunately, no, Mom told me. I can't risk putting him with the others until I can find out what's going on. I need to spend a bit more time with him today. Were you planning on coming to the office to do your homework? Shouldn't I? Maybe not right now. I'd prefer to have as few distractions as possible. Are you all right with that? I guess so, I said. I'll see you later. I hung up, relieved. If Mom had demanded I come to her office, I'd have been hard-pressed to get out of it. But now both Mom and Dad had their hands full, leaving me the opportunity to investigate Kazoo's disappearance. I made a beeline for the character changing room. This is located near the front entrance in the employees-only area of the park. It was a place where the motley crew who had been hired to dress as Fun Jungle's animal characters put on their costume. Their job essentially involved standing still and letting people take photos with them. The most demanding thing that they ever had to do was wave their hand on the occasion. However, the costumes were quite uncomfortable, especially on summer days when it hit over 100 degrees at Fun Jungle. And thus, even though the job was ridiculously easy, it was very undesirable. Only three types of people tended to apply: slackers, who were incredibly unmotivated; screw-ups who weren't skilled at anything else; and aspiring actors who mistakenly believed that dressing as a giant animal was a good way to break into show business. Clown, and even gone to a prestigious clown school. He expected that as a character, he'd be allowed to put some of his skills into effect to amuse the crowds, juggling perhaps, or riding a unicycle. To his dismay, he learned he wasn't supposed to do anything at all. In the first few days Fun Jungle had been open, the actor playing Zelda Zebra had tried juggling some bowling pins and had accidentally brained a tourist with one. The tourist had threatened to sue. Fun Jungle had settled quickly, and the lawyers had nixed any further character performances. Charlie suspected that he'd merely been hired because of his size. Sadly, this is probably true. As a dwarf, Charlie was the only person who could fit into some of the smaller, cuter costumes. Unfortunately for him, as much as he hated his job, he couldn't find another one. Being an ex-con severely cut down on the number of people willing to hire him. Summer's plan relied on the fact that Charlie was no longer playing the zoo. No one was. Now that the public knew who the koala was missing, Tracy Boyd, had decided that keeping the character around was a bad idea. So the kazoo costume had been shelved, and Larry the Lizard, Charlie's old character, had been revived from the dead for. They most likely hadn't informed everyone at the park about this. Therefore, most employees wouldn't think twice about seeing a giant koala wandering about. If they even thought, there was moderate security to get into the employee area at the park, which I passed through easily as the guards all knew me. But there was no security at the changing room at all. I found it empty. During the first few months the park had been open, the room had often been filled with actors slacking off rather than doing their jobs. But one of Marge's major initiatives had been to crack down on this. Lollygagging while you're on the clock was the same as stealing. The actors hadn't taken her seriously at first, but then she managed to get their pay docked for any time that they didn't work. After that, the changing room was almost always deserted. Without anyone in it, the room was kind of spooky. The costumes hung on hooks on the wall, while the disembodied heads were lined up on the shelf above them. It looked somewhat like a zoo full of gaily colored animals that had been skinned and decapitated. There were two kazoo costumes wedged between Eleanor Elephant and Alexander Aardvark. There were two of every costume just in case one got dirty, which happened quite a lot. Children rubbed everything from snot and melted ice cream on them, while the actors didn't treat them so well either. A few days before, the actress who had caught the flu had vomited inside Rhonda Rhino's helmet. I grabbed a kazoo, pulled it on over my clothes, and walked right out the door. Since Charlie Connor wasn't much shorter than I was, the costume fit pretty well, but it was still a pain to wear. It was made of thick material that trapped my body heat, so even though it was a cold day, after going only a short distance, I felt like I was in a steam room. Plus, the giant head was incredibly difficult to see out of. I could only look out through the small mesh in the mouth, but the mouth was angled downward. This was designed to make sure whoever was inside didn't bowl over any toddlers. But it made it almost impossible to tell where I was going. Every time I wanted to look straight ahead, I had to tilt backward, and then the head was so heavy I nearly fell over. No wonder Charlie was always so grumpy, I thought. He spent 8 hours a day in a koala-shaped torture chamber. Between my inability to see and the bulkiness of the costume, I couldn't move very fast. I was a bit worried that with my slow, stumbling gait, everyone would think I was drunk. However, no one seemed concerned by it. Perhaps since koalas are known for being slow and shambling, everyone figured I was method acting. I walked right through the employee area without anyone saying a thing, then entered the main park and headed for Koalaville. Getting there took a bit longer than I had expected, not only because I couldn't move quickly, but because half of the tourists I passed wanted pictures with me. No one seemed to think it was weird to have a giant kazoo around when the real one had been stolen. Instead, it appeared that many tourists were even more excited to see me because kazoo was gone. Robbed of the chance to see the real koala, they could at least take photos of a fake one. In fact, several families, perhaps worried that their young children would melt down if they didn't see a koala, tried to pass me off as the real kazoo. Despite all of this, the costume worked perfectly, allowing me to hide in plain sight. I walked right past several security guards who barely even noticed me. I was passing Carnivore Canyon when I spotted Arthur Connick lurking behind some bushes, talking on his phone. Something about him struck me as odd. He kept glancing around fervently, the way a kid who's cheating on a test keeps an eye out for the teacher. Plus, it was unusual to see Arthur outside. Why was he making a phone call out there in the cold when he had a nice warm office? Unless he didn't want anyone at Carnivore Canyon to overhear him. For once, no tourists were tailing me, so I slowed down as I approached Arthur, trying to test the idea that even employees forgot there were humans inside the costumes. It actually seemed to work. Arthur glanced at me, but then continued his call, as though maybe I were a real giant koala who happened to be wandering by. That's not enough money, he said. What I'm offering is easily worth twice that. He listened a bit, then grew annoyed. Do you have any idea what I went through to get this? Do you do you understand the risk I have taken? If anyone finds out, I could go to jail, or at the very least, I'd lose my job. Unfortunately, the wind kicked up and then drowning out the rest of Arthur's words. As if you remember, Arthur was the one Marge and Bubba Stackhouse on them that resulted in the whole incident at Koalaville the previous day. So that was a few chapters ago. If you guys didn't remember Arthur, that's who he was. But it wasn't easy to sidle in a koala costume. I got a bit too close, and Arthur froze rather than eavesdropping. Arthur seemed to relax. He was gone. Could that have been about Kazoo? I wondered. Was it possible that Arthur had taken the koala and was now trying to sell it? He'd obviously been up to something illegal. He didn't work in Koalaville, but he worked awfully close, and he knew a great deal about the park's technology. Maybe he'd come up with a way to circumvent the alarm system. He had also been very quick to turn me over to the cops and declare me guilty. Maybe he'd been doing that to distract everyone else from him. There was no way for me to follow him now. However, I didn't know where he'd gone. Most likely he was back into the carnivore control, and I couldn't get in there. Then again, maybe he was hiding somewhere, keeping an eye on me to see if I had overheard him. Either way, I needed to stick with my original plan. I turned back toward Koalaville and found Large Marge blocking my path. What do you think you're doing? She demanded. I gulped, wondering how she figured out it was me. But before I could say anything, she told me, "You've got your costume on all wrong." I heaved a sigh of relief. Marge hadn't recognized me at all. Instead, she thought I was an actor. Although now my silence had started to make her suspicious. "Hey," she said, knocking on the koala head to get my attention. "You listening in there? What's your name?" Very loudly and slowly to me, as if this would magically make someone who didn't speak English understand. "Your costume is on wrong. The head is cockeyed. You look like Kazoo had been in a car accident. Stand still." She seized the head in both hands and heaved. The head twisted a bit and locked into place. "There!" Marge stepped back to admire her work. "Much better." I nodded as well as I could with the giant head. "Muchas gracias." "That costume is your uniform," Marge informed me, apparently having forgotten that she was talking to someone who didn't speak English. "You represent this park when you wear it, just like me. So you wear it right, and you wear it with pride. Got it?" I nodded again. "Si, senor, si." "Okay, then," Marge said. "Don't let me catch you improperly dressed again. Now get to your post." She pointed off toward Koalaville. I hurried off that way. I was slightly worried Marge was behind me, berating some tourists for putting recycled bottles in the regular trash down. After all, with Kazoo gone, Fun Jungle had made a wise, if rare decision, to stop selling any merchandise with the koala on it. Feeling that this was in bad taste, the koala exhibit was shuttered, the doors locked. According to my parents, the koala keepers had already been transferred to other locations. Christy Sullivan was now working at the small mammal house. I was all alone, but able to wander the area freely without any tourists clamoring to take my picture. As Summer had instructed, I went right to the exhibit to see if there was any way in or out that wouldn't be seen by the cameras. My first thought was that perhaps there was an entrance that I didn't know about, But this quickly proved to be wrong. The building wasn't big, so it didn't take much time to thoroughly examine the exterior. There were no hidden doors. I also determined that there was no route to the exhibit that avoided the security cameras. I knew there were 4 cameras. 4 closest ones were, having figured out their positions from the footage that I had been unlucky enough to appear in. They covered every angle of the exhibit, and in addition, I spotted 2 more cameras close by. So the question remained, how had the thief got in and out without being seen? I'd come up with only 2 answers. Number 1, that there was a secret underground entrance. This was doubtful. There was almost nothing underground at Fun Jungle, as the park was built on solid rock, which was very expensive to dig through. J.J. McCracken had declared the building Carnivore Canyon into the rock had been a colossal money-sucking mistake that he was determined to never repeat. The koala exhibit was far from the rest of the park and thus would have required an extremely long tunnel. Plus, the building had been erected so quickly there probably which the hunters used to cover their faces. There was also several military bases close by, which meant there was lots of current and retired soldiers. And the schools all had big ROTC programs where the art of camouflage was taught. And on top of all that, there were tons of paintball enthusiasts. In fact, a 25-acre paintball range sat only a few miles from Fun Jungle. Women and children showed up in full camouflage every weekend to play pretend war. Until Fun Jungle came along, killer paintball had been the biggest tourist attraction in the region. Even my parents knew a decent amount about camouflage. Dad used it all the time to photograph animals, while Mom had employed it to get close to the gorillas in the wild. There were plenty of other field camouflage at some point as well. They had done it quickly enough. Happening for that long must have been my account for how Kazoo had been stolen, although the question of who had done it was still wide open. I poked around the exhibit a bit longer, but didn't find any more clues. In truth, I didn't even know what I was looking for, short of the handy note saying I took the koala signed by a thief. It was already starting to get dark, which made it even harder to see inside the koala costume. I figured I ought to go back and return it soon. I was nearing closing time anyhow, and both of my parents would soon be wondering where I was. I couldn't help but feeling frustrated. Despite Summer's brilliant plan for me to remain incognito, I hadn't learned enough. Meaning, I would still be suspect number 1 when Large Marge presented her case to J.J. McCracken the next morning. I decided to make one last sweep of the Koalaville just in case I'd missed something, though I didn't have high hopes. And then I saw the man in the Astros cap. It was the same man from the YouTube video that Violet Grace had shown me at lunch. The man who had been oddly stoic during the revelation that the koala had been poached. Even in the dimming lights, it wasn't that hard to recognize him. His orange cap stood out. He was still wearing sunglasses despite the darkening skies. He was standing near one of the closed-up koala merchandise tents talking to someone I couldn't see. I crept closer. Unfortunately, now that the koala costume was working against me, it was hard to be inconspicuous while dressed as a giant marsupial. There were no more tourists around that I could pretend to be entertaining. In fact, it occurred to me that the Astros cap was probably here for the exact reason. No tourists. Therefore, no one to see or overhear him. I simply had to hope that because I was in Koalaville that I'd look like part of the advertisement for Kazoo merchandise that someone had forgotten to clear away. I finally reached the point where I could see around the corner of the merchandise tent. The person Astros cap was talking to came into view. It was Freddie Malloy. It was tough to make him out at first, as he had a safari hat pulled down tightly over his head, and then he gestured but when he gestured, I could see only 3 fingers on one of his hands. Freddy and Astro's Cap definitely seemed to be familiar with one another. They were standing close together like friends or business associates rather than two people who had just met. Freddy was pointing up the hill away from Koalaville toward the rest of Fun Jungle. Astro's Cap listened intently, nodding every once in a while. At one point, he reached forward as though Freddy had handed him something small tucked into the pocket of his jacket. Unfortunately, I was too far away to hear what they were saying, and there was no way that I could get closer in the koala costume. I'd have to ditch it and hope no one from security noticed me. Just as I started to wiggle out of it, however, Astro's Cap and Freddy started walking away. They disappeared around the corner of the tent, heading back toward the park. I kept the costume on and followed. By the time I made it to the tent, they had already split up. Apparently, the two of them didn't want to be seen together. Freddy was moving quickly toward Carnivore Canyon while Astro's hat was angling toward the park exit. I couldn't follow both of them, so I quickly opted to go after Astro's Cap. I could always track down Freddy while I might never see the other man again. Astro's Cap moved cautiously, pretending to be a regular tourist, but keeping a close eye on his surroundings. I kept my distance until we made it back to Adventure Road, where there were a few tourists that had made it at least some scene for a giant koala to be wandering about. Then I stepped up my pace to try to catch him. Astro's Cap suddenly stopped in front of Shark Odyssey. I stopped as well, pretended to wave at some tourists. Astro's Cap looked around to see if anyone was watching him. His eyes fell right on me, but he didn't seem to think anything of it. Eventually, he decided the coast was clear, and then he ducked around the side of the building into the employees only area. That certainly seemed suspicious. Now that Astro's Cap couldn't see me anymore, I hurried toward Shark Odyssey as quickly as I could. It was hard to run in the costume, though, and despite the cold weather, I began to sweat. A tourist family yelled at me to stop so they could take a picture, but there was no time. I pantomimed pointing at my watch to keep on going, as though perhaps Kazoo had a big appointment that he was late for. I reached the point where Astro's Cap had slipped off Adventure Road. A small walkway wound through the landscaping along the side of Shark Odyssey. I followed it, although it was difficult to fit my giant koala head through the dense brush. My huge ears got hung up in the branches several times. The path led to a door marked maintenance, employees only. As with almost every other door at Fun Jungle, there was a keypad entry for it. I looked around. Astro's Cap couldn't have gone anywhere except through the door. The landscaping was thick for him to have left the path without breaking some branches or leaving a footprint in the mud. I pulled off my koala glove and tried to enter J.J. McCracken's secret code. As Summer had warned, it no longer worked. However, Astro's Cap he must have had the proper code for Shark Odyssey. Was he an employee there, or was that what Freddy had given him? If so, how did Freddy get it? He didn't work at Shark Odyssey himself. Whatever the case, I'd hit a dead end. I schlepped back down the path, figuring I'd just have to wait until Astro's Cap emerged from Shark Odyssey again. The moment I stepped out of the landscaping, someone broadsided me. For the moment, I thought I'd been ambushed, but then I realized my attacker was only 3 feet high. The tourist family had caught up to me. The 3-year-old daughter was now clamped tightly to my leg, hugging Kazoo with all her worth. "Kazoo, I love you," she said. I did my best to give her a friendly rub on the head, the way I had seen Kazoo do with other kids, although I ended up bonking her pretty hard. She didn't seem to care at all. In fact, she giggled happily. "Isn't that cute?" her mother said. "Kazoo loves you too." While the parents snapped pictures, a line started to form. It was now past closing time, and all the exhibits had shut down for the night, so I was the only thing left for people to see. The last batch of tourists filed out filed out of Shark Odyssey, and every kid among them clamored to have their photo taken with me. Before long, there were more than 20 families waiting to see me. I didn't want to make any waves, so I dutifully stood for the photos with everyone. And more people kept showing up. Some people didn't even know that they were what they were lining up for. They simply saw a line and got in it, figuring it must be something important. This happened quite a lot at Fun Jungle. I posed with a German family that seemed to think I was Yogi Bear. After a while, I lost track of how long I'd been standing there. I was having my photo taken with a busload of Japanese tourists when Astro's Cap finally emerged from Shark Odyssey again. He slipped out of the landscaping and headed for the park exit. There were still lots of people lined up to meet me, but I had to go after him. Even though it was a direct violation of Fun Jungle character protocol, I spoke for Kazoo using what I assumed was a cute, koala-like voice. Sorry, folks, the park's closed. I have to get home for dinner. Unfortunately, the tourists weren't so easily put off. As I tried to leave, several blocked my way. Come on, one father implied. My kid's been waiting 15 minutes to see you. Sorry, I chirped. I'm really hungry. I haven't had any eucalyptus since lunch. A child latched on my leg. Don't go, Kazoo, please. Astro's Cap was gaining ground. I didn't have any more time to be polite. I dropped the koala voice and used the gruffest one I could find. Let me go, kid. I've got to go pee. The kid released me, startled. Several adults weren't quite as obliging. They all grabbed for me, but I shoved through them like a running back gunning for a touchdown. I knocked over the last two people with my giant ears, and I couldn't even stop to see if they were all right. Instead, I ran after Astro's Cap as fast as I could. He was trying to fit in with the other tourists, so he was only walking, and I was able to close the gap on him. I wasn't too far behind him when he suddenly ducked off the main path again. He had gone behind the Polar Pavilion. I rounded the corner after him. This time, however, he wasn't heading inside the building. Instead, he was waiting for me. All right, guys, I am going to stop there for today. We will pick up with the read aloud tomorrow. And like I said, my goal will be to try to go live at around 11 o'clock tomorrow morning again. I will continue to make that endeavor to try to go at a set time. But I do remind you, families, if you aren't able to catch it live, you can always visit my channel, and the video will be posted right there where you can watch it later. But if it's easier to catch it live, I will try to do it at a set time. Oh, you're welcome, Zach. But, my schedule changes every day, so, I will try to keep up with the changes and keep you guys updated and do my best to kind of keep it at a set time. So thank you so much for joining me today. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully some of you guys can go outside. It looks like it's another nice day today. It's one of those rare, nice spring days that we get in Michigan every once in a while. They don't always appear very often, but when they do, you need to enjoy them. So stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.